You're listening to the Greek's Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Haristadoulou.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Greek's Gridiron. I'm Ethan Haristadoulou, and today on this Friday evening, we are diving into Week 13 of the NFL, looking at Sunday slates of matchups. We have ourselves 4 games already behind us, and we have started off the week 0-4. So we are looking for a bit of a bounce back here to try and correct what has been a terrible start to the week, as the Bears just put away the Philadelphia Eagles not too long ago. That being said, as always, I invite you all to comment down below. Let me hear from you, your thoughts, your opinions on all the matchups, who you like, who you dislike, and why. But we begin first off with the Rams going into Carolina to take on the Panthers here. Obviously, with this matchup, you look at Matthew Stafford and what he is able to, or what he has been able to do so far this season, throwing to Puka Nacua and Davante Adams, who have just been one of the deadliest 1-2 punches through the air this season. Stafford sitting on 30 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions. Puka Nacua is third in receiving yards per game this season. And then Davante Adams, first amongst everybody in receiving touchdowns, sitting at 12 at the top of the leaderboard. This has been a passing attack that not a lot of people have found answers for, and Carolina, who's been about average or so far against the pass this season, will be without J.C. Horn, their star cornerback, and I have slim hopes for them being able to slow down what Matthew Stafford and company have been able to do so far through the air. On the flip side, you look at this Panthers offense and just the way that they have been very much up and down all season long. Bryce Young went from a career best performance to arguably one of his worst performances of the season since like week 1 with just a downright ugly game last week. And I would say so far for Bryce Young's season, it has not really been great. You're looking at 2, maybe 3 good to strong performances so far, and he's going up against a Rams defense that loves to bring pressure. They can get after the quarterback, and Bryce Young, 7 touchdowns, 4 picks, and about a 52% completion rate when he's facing said pressure. I do have a little bit of concern with how he's going to fare against this Rams defense. You add in the fact that it's the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL, sitting at just 16.3 points per game allowed. They're tied for first in touchdowns allowed with the Denver Broncos at just 17. They're top 10 in total sacks. They're just outside top 10 in pressure rate. They've got Jared Verse and Byron Young coming off the edges with some of those guys in the interior who are also threatening at getting after the quarterback as well. Jared Verse amongst the best of all edge rushers in the NFL at generating pressure as a solo player himself. You add in that Carolina's run game has kind of fallen off a cliff over the last 3 games or so, putting up roughly 70 or so yards per game. I just don't really see where the win comes from the Panthers in this one, so I am leaning the Rams on this. You add in the fact that there's some health along the O-line concerns as well for the Carolina Panthers, so you just don't really know what you're going to get out of them. And I know it's at home, but this Rams team feels like they are rocking and rolling and firing on all cylinders, coming off that massive beatdown that they put against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week. I'll take the Rams. Comfortable enough victory, 27-17. I wouldn't be shocked if this winds up being a little bit wider, but I am giving the Panthers defense a little bit of benefit of the doubt being at home. I think maybe they can keep this one a little bit closer, but I think at least a 10-point victory should be in the Rams' future here. Next matchup we're going to look at is going to be the 49ers and the Browns. And it sounds like the weather for this one could be a little ugly. It depends on what you're going to get, but it might be snow, I think, if it's cold enough. So with that in mind, you have yourself Brock Purdy coming off a 3-interception performance at home against the Carolina Panthers last week, where he didn't really face a ton of pressure, but he still ended up throwing those 3 picks. You have yourself Cleveland's finest, Myles Garrett, coming in off the edge, sitting at 18 sacks so far this season, 13 of those 18 coming in just the last 4 games alone. He's on a bit of a tear, and I don't really know how Brock Purdy is going to respond if Myles Garrett is breathing down his neck the way he has been against quarterbacks over the last handful of weeks. Cleveland does rank 2nd against the pass, and that's a tough team to throw against. And maybe you get creative with Christian McCaffrey, leaning on him to run the football, but also just kind of moving him around to maybe get him open, because he has been the security blanket for whether it's been Brock Purdy or Mac Jones under center. He's first in total scrimmage yards for a reason. You got to really scheme around him and get him open and get him going both through the air and on the ground. So I would be shocked if he's not the potentially leading receiver and rusher for this game, just because of the way things are going to look weather-wise. You want to incorporate a lot with him. On the flip side, you have yourself, of course, Shedeur Sanders, who's making his second start. Up and down is probably the best way that you could describe start number one for him against Las Vegas last week. Had a couple of nice, really good-looking deep shots to Isaiah Bond and Jerry Jeudy going down the field. You even saw Myles Garrett himself. They shot the camera right at him, and he was like, but one of our quarterbacks did that? Yes. That being said, the day was fairly inconsistent, though. He finished with 55% completion rate. He also had an interception that went like straight into triple coverage and ultimately was right to a defender. So, bit of a mixed bag for his first performance here. San Francisco, though, has been an easier team to throw against in large part because their pass rush is probably and arguably the worst in the NFL right now, as they are last in sacks and bottom 5 in pressures. This could definitely be to the benefit of Shedeur Sanders as he preps for game number 2 for himself. And obviously, injuries have a large part in why this 49ers defense has performed the way it has. And you also have, I guess, a bit of a strength in stopping the run, and that could pose a reason why maybe you lean on Shedeur a little bit more here. I also do feel like Cleveland, though, with the weather kind of playing out the way it might, wants to lean on Quinshon Judkins and not put too much on Shedeur Sanders' shoulders, especially if it gets wild out there. Because again, you never know. It could be a little bit of snow. It could be a lot of snow. It could be an ugly mix depending on how warm it is. Like, you don't really know until it starts happening. But the way I see it, lean on Quinshon Judkins, try to establish some sort of run. San Fran is ranked within the top 10 in the NFL against the run right now in terms of yards per game allowed. And while it hasn't been exactly the greatest for Quinshon Judkins, he did come away with a couple of rushing touchdowns last week. But I mean, if you look at his just yardage totals of the last month or so, hasn't been great. So try to get something going. Just help out Shedeur going into start number 2. Ultimately, though, this is a tough one, and I could see this one going either way, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that San Fran is a West Coast warm weather team going into Cleveland with the weather being the way it is. I just don't really trust Cleveland's offense here. I'm going to lean San Francisco, but I'm taking them like 19-17 in one of those lower scoring, tough time moving the football type of games. It really just kind of depends on what this weather looks like at kickoff and by the time that final whistle blows and how that game pans itself out. But I think the Cleveland Browns make the 49ers earn this one here, and they just scrape by with a W. The next one we're looking at here is going to be the Saints and the Dolphins. Alvin Kamara is already listed as out for the Saints offense, and it sounds like wide receiver Chris Olave could be out for this one as well. He's currently questionable, but for an offense that has only scored 10 points, or more than 10 points, just once in their last 4 games, if both of those guys are out, it's already tough that Kamara is. If Olave's out as well, the way things have kind of played out for Tyler Shuck so far this season, I don't really know how much I could buy this Saints offense in this matchup here. And I mean, Tyler Shuck last week was kind of feasted on by Atlanta, sacked 5 different times in that matchup. In Miami, with all the struggles that they've had this season, their pass defense has been pretty solid. They've been about average so far this season against the pass. It's their run defense that's been a bit of a nightmare. So I'd say, if Alvin Kamara was here, lean on him, see what you can do on the ground, maybe do some damage there. You're in nice sunny Florida. Looks like the weather's going to be nice. Perfect place for a guy like Alvin Kamara to feast. Now you're looking at the rest of the running back room to maybe put together some kind of strong performance for you. But I am a little bit concerned about what this Saints offense could look like. And then on the flip side, you look at Miami and just one of the more inconsistent, I guess is the best way you can put it, offenses. You look at their last 4 games, 16 points against Washington, 30 against Buffalo, 6 against Baltimore, and then going back a few weeks, you had 34 against Atlanta. And I mean, it boggles the mind that that's kind of the score results you got for some of these games. Like, I would assume if you had just told me these point totals and told me to pin them to a game, I'd say 30 against Washington, 16 against Buffalo, and did they really put up 34 against Atlanta? Like, that's crazy to me, considering what Atlanta's defenses looked like. But a lot of it has to do with what they've done on the ground. They found a lot of success running the football, and honestly, the reason that they've probably come away with wins in 3 of their last 4 has got to do with that rushing attack. They took it to Atlanta, they took it to Buffalo, and even took it to Washington a little bit. New Orleans right now is allowing about 125 yards or so on the ground so far this season. Their pass defense is actually ranked in the top 10, believe it or not, at 9th in yards per game allowed. So I think they just lean on Devon Achane, Ollie Gordon, who's been finding a lot of success in those short yardage situations, and just run the ball. Keep it simple. Don't get too crazy. Run the football. Do the damage on the ground you can do. I think the Dolphins come away with a healthy win here, 28-14. Continue these winning ways that they found during the back half of the season here, keeping their season a little bit interesting, even though there's really not a ton of hope to cling for as things currently stand. But you should be getting a W over the New Orleans Saints at home. Following up that game is going to be the Falcons taking on the Jets in the Meadowlands. Now, here's the deal. Rain appears to be in the forecast. This is another one of those that, depending on how cold it gets, maybe could change up and get a little slushy, maybe. I don't think it's going to get that cold, but you never know. That being said, the Jets' offensive line has their work cut out for them going up against the Falcons' defensive front that has been a bit of a problem for teams as far as pass rushing has been concerned. Jets' O-line has given up the 5th most sacks so far this season. But they've been tough in the run game. They've been able to get some push and open up some running lanes. We just haven't really seen this team lean too much into Breece Hall, despite the fact that he's averaging 4.6 yards per attempt. And while he isn't the highest on the leaderboard in terms of rushing yards in total so far this season, I would be very curious if he was actually getting like the workhorse back level of totes that you could expect from a guy like Breece Hall and where he'd be, because yes, he's a little bit further down on the board as far as rushing yards is concerned. I think he's ranked 14th amongst all running backs, but 10 of those running backs above him have more rushing attempts than he does. And again, he's averaging 4.6 yards per attempt. That's actually more than a handful of backs are in front of him as well. So you'd wonder where he'd be if they were actually running the football with him. I think with Atlanta's pass rush being the way it is, being as strong as it is, and just one of the more impressive turnarounds we've seen this season from anybody amongst anything, run the football. See what you can do. While they've been able to get after the quarterback, they have not been able to stop the run. We had just talked about Miami last game and how successful they were against them running the football. I think this is one of those games where you want to lean on Breece Hall, protect Tyrod Taylor now, who's in place of Justin Fields, who got benched a few weeks ago, and just see what you can do on the ground. They're 7th in rush, or they've allowed the 7th most rushing yards per game this season and have the 2nd worst run stuff rate. Challenge the Falcons defensive front and see what you can do. On the flip side, with Kirk Cousins obviously going, the Jets defense surprisingly has been pretty good, all things considered, with the sell-off at the trade deadline, getting rid of Sauce Gardner, getting rid of Quinnen Williams. But the run defense, though, is something that you could maybe take advantage of. I don't really know if you want to lean on Kirk Cousins, especially if the rain gets a little bit crazy. I mean, yeah, he had a solid performance last week, 2 touchdowns, an interception, 199 yards, but a 69% completion rate. Not spectacular, but not bad by any means against New Orleans. Again, I don't know how much I really want to challenge this defense through the air, just because you're down Drake London, and for what it's worth, 2 of their last 3 games, the Jets have had a pretty good showing stopping the pass. They kept Baltimore in check, and I know that Baltimore kind of looks ugly right now, but it's still Lamar Jackson. It's still the Ravens offense, so you'll give some respect to that. They also, for whatever it's worth, held Cleveland in check. I know that really doesn't mean a whole lot, but they did give up a lot of yards to Drake May. So, you have some good games. You have a pretty bad game mixed in since that trade deadline. So I'm not 100% sure what you got here. And again, I just don't know what you can make of Kirk Cousins right now at this stage. I do know that, however, you have Bijan Robinson, and you can run the football with him. He is somebody who that you can count on each and every single down. He's probably going to get positive net yardage for you. And the way the Jets have gotten steamrolled a few times this season on the ground, and most recently against Cleveland following the trade deadline when they got rid of Quinnen Williams, yeah, they've had a couple of good games the last 2 that they've played. I do think that if anyone is going to be able to challenge that run defense post Quinnen Williams and see just how effective it actually is, Bijan Robinson would probably be that guy. So with a game that could get a little bit ugly weather-wise, lean on your star running back. Let him do most of the work in this game here for you. You probably come away with a tight win. I like the Falcons 24-17. I just don't really know if the Jets offense has it in them to really get a lot going here. And I could see if they are dropping back to pass a little too much, the Jets that is, I could see Atlanta really teeing off on them and getting after them. So I like the Falcons on this. The next one we have is the Cardinals and the Buccaneers, and it sounds like Bucky Irving is set to make his return. Now, how much action he actually sees is very much up in the air, according to head coach Todd Bowles, but the fact that he's back is huge on its own. Then it sounds like you're also going to get offensive lineman Ben Bredesen back as well. So you're getting a little bit of a boost out of the backfield, and of course up front along the offensive line, Baker Mayfield is apparently good to go, which is very surprising considering how much pain it looked like he was in against the Rams last week in their loss, but he's there. He's your guy. He's leading the way. So I know there was concern about his availability, but it sounds like he's good to go. Arizona's given up about 26 points per game this season. I think this is a really good opportunity for a bounce back after what was a bit of a humbling performance against the Rams last week. They've been about average against the run, slightly below against the pass. The pass rush isn't really a whole lot to worry about. Injuries have also ravaged Arizona on both sides of the football, but also on defense. So I just feel like you have a good opportunity with guys coming back and continuing to get healthier. This is probably the best time to put up some points and just kind of start feeling yourself again. Get the vibes going for them. On the flip side, I look at Tampa Bay's pass defense, and this is something that does worry me ever so slightly about like this game winding up being maybe a little bit closer for comfort than you'd like it to. Tampa Bay has faced 3 of the top 10 passing attacks in their last 3 games as they've gone through the ringer against the Bills, the Patriots, and the Rams. Now, Jacoby Brissett is not in the upper echelon of quarterbacking by any means, but he has found a lot of success throwing the football in this Arizona offense, averaging about 329 yards per game through the air. And I'm excluding the Tennessee game where he came in and threw like a single pass. I don't want to put that in there and mess up my numbers here. But 329 yards per game since he's taken over as a starter. That's quite a bit of air yards. And with a secondary that's a little bit banged up still and maybe just not all the way back at 100% health just yet for some of the other guys that have been working their way back in. You got a guy like Trey McBride who's going over the middle who could be a bit of a problem. It's just one of those things that is in the back of my mind. I do think, however, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers walk away with a pretty comfortable win here. Like I said, this is a good bounce back opportunity, a good get right game for both your offense and your defense, to be quite honest. So give me the Bucs, 31-20. Statement with the offense as they start to get healthier and let everyone know that we're not dead yet. Yeah, the injuries have kind of caught Tampa Bay for a good chunk of this season and kind of derailed what was an awesome start to the year, but this feels like a good moment where they can kind of bounce back and get things rolling again. We'll look at the Jaguars and Titans next, and I've got to say, I don't know how the Jaguars are in the position, or the Jaguars are in the position that they're in. It just doesn't make any sense to me. This is one of the worst 7-4 teams I feel like I've ever seen. And that's not just me being a hater. That's just from watching a lot of Jaguars football. That being said, I do think there is an opportunity here in Tennessee for Cam Ward to have himself a pretty good football game. You have Jacksonville, who's a bottom 10 pass defense and pass rush, not being the most effective by any means. I understand that the O-line has struggled. There's no real run game to speak of, but Cam Ward has done a solid job in the situation that he's been, where he loses his head coach and the offense has looked the way it has around him. He has battled through a lot, and he's been missing key guys all throughout the season as well. I do think there is a world where he has a little bit of success against this Jacksonville Jaguars defense. However, despite me feeling the way I do about this Jaguars team, they still find ways to win. They still find ways to get it done. I could see Trevor Lawrence throwing another 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in this game here. It keeps the game awkwardly close, but Jacksonville still gets the win. I'll take them 20-16. The AFC South is one of those weird divisions too, where like the better team always plays down to the lesser team of the two. And obviously Tennessee being the lesser of the two here, I could see something like that happening where it's just awkwardly close. It shouldn't be. Jaguars win again and you go, my God, like that's just another wild win to watch. I also feel like the running back room is kind of coming alive. Travis Etienne obviously is doing what he does. And we've seen some sparks from Bashal Tutin over the last few weeks. So I think if they can get things going on the ground, challenge this Titans run defense, they should be all right. I'm not too worried about the Jaguars dropping this game here. I just wouldn't be shocked if Tennessee keeps it close. But like I said, Jacksonville 20-16. Closer contest than I think the Jaguars would like. We'll look at the Texans and Colts next here. This is the last game of the early window. This is a big one here because I think it has a lot to do with what happens with the AFC South should the Texans come away with a big upset victory here. Now, first things first, Jonathan Taylor versus this Texans run defense. A lot of this game, in my opinion, gets dictated off who gets the upper hand in this one here. Houston ranks 5th in the NFL right now in rushing yards per game allowed this season. They're allowing just 4.1 yards per attempt. They've been a stout run defense across the board. They've been extremely good. Jonathan Taylor, of course, unbelievable running back. He was in MVP conversations for a large portion of the season. He has been shut down, though, in 2 of the Indianapolis Colts' last 3 games, and obviously that hurting his case for MVP, going up against Pittsburgh and Kansas City, who also the Colts just both happened to lose to. Jonathan Taylor, though, season-long, 5.8 yards per attempt, tied for first amongst all qualified running backs. It's going to be a tall task for Sheldon Rankins and Tim Settle on the inside, and of course, what your edge rushers can do on the outside. Obviously, Danielle Hunter on one side, and it sounds like a possibility of Will Anderson Jr. may or may not be available. It just kind of depends on how he's doing regarding his chest injury. I don't know what that is. I just happened to catch that before I sat down and was recording. I don't think anything's been confirmed yet that I haven't seen, at least. So definitely something worth keeping an eye on there, because that is concerning, and that could be huge for the Colts end here, because to my next point, Daniel Jones in a fractured fibula. I don't know how he's playing on a fractured fibula. And I can't believe that this is actually being allowed and that anyone's okay with this. And listen, respect to the toughness. Great for Daniel Jones to be willing to do this. I just can't believe he's going to do it. And based off the videos that I've seen going around, he's limping. He's not comfortable. And I mean, I know you can take a steroid shot or a cortisone shot and numb it for 3 hours. Like, sure, whatever works. Is that going to work the remainder of the season? Is that fracture going to be able to heal over the remainder of this season if he's playing on his feet, running around, trying to do what he does as a mobile QB? I don't know. You add in the fact that Jones over the last few weeks has not looked great as is, and I don't really know when this fibula injury came up, but Jones has 4 picks in his last 3 games. He also has 6 fumbles over that time as well, 3 of them getting lost to the defense. So Houston, 4th best in takeaways. They've got 19 on the season. They have a pass rush that is, of course, an unbelievable threat. We saw what they did just last week. I am genuinely concerned about what this Colts offense could look like running into this Texans defense, from the passing game to the run game and everything else. And we haven't even touched on C.J. Stroud making his return, too. C.J. Stroud's season's been a bit up and down. It hasn't exactly been the greatest, but Patrick Mahomes just last week put up 352 yards through the air against this Colts defense. I know some of that was in overtime, but he still put up 350 on them. And this is a secondary that has Travarius Ward, has Kenny Moore, has Sauce Gardner, and they're still letting teams get by them. This is no sure thing for the Indianapolis Colts, in my opinion. And honestly, this is probably worst possible timing for the Indianapolis Colts, which is why I'm going to take the Houston Texans for the upset win on this one here. Both being indoor teams, being on the road, obviously you got to deal with the crowd, and while, rust could be a bit of a concern with C.J. Stroud, it feels like this team has found itself a little bit while Davis Mills was under center, and I feel like C.J. Stroud will benefit from that. This offensive line has definitely improved in Houston over the last month and a half or so, and some change, coupled with the way this defense is playing. I know the Will Anderson Jr. thing is concerning, and if he's not there, that's not great, but there's still enough talent on that defense from the first to the second to the third level that I'm not really too worried about. So I'm going to take the Texans 23-17. Something tells me that this Colts season could be fizzling out a little bit, and I'm kind of worried about it. As a Colts fan, I hope I'm wrong, but something tells me that Houston's getting the job done here. Going into the early window, we got the Vikings and the Seahawks, and I've got to say for this one here, a lot of it just comes down to what Max Brosmer, of all people, is going to do to this Seahawks defense. And I don't think it's going to be a whole lot. Seattle's pass rush is one of the scarier units in the NFL. They've got the 4th most sacks in the league, 3rd highest pressure rate. They got 5 different players with 3 sacks or more on the season. And on top of that, they're one of the best teams against the run. So I don't really know what this Vikings offense is really going to be able to do. It's anyone's guess, because you don't really know. Max Brosmer could come out and be the best quarterback ever. The possibility's obviously there. So we'll see what happens. But if this offense turns one-dimensional, the run game gets shut down, and Seattle's just teeing off on Brosmer, that's a nightmare situation, if you ask me, for the Vikings offense. On the flip side, though, and a lot of this game, in my opinion, comes down to pass rush on both sides, Minnesota loves to blitz, loves to bring the extra guys, loves to generate pressure. You got Brian Flores going up against his team's former quarterback, and you'd have to think somebody who was coaching the defense that saw Sam Darnold for an entire season in practice might have an idea or two as to how to replicate Sam Darnold's performances from the last 2 games he played for the Vikings last season. I'm a little bit worried about that. This Vikings defense does scare me. Second highest in pressure rate, sixth best sack rate overall amongst the NFL. Yeah, the sack total isn't as high, but on a down-by-down basis, they are generating a very consistent level of sacks. You'd have to worry if you are a Seahawks fan about this. The O-line has held up, though. It's been really good in Seattle this season, so a good test on both sides, but ultimately Seattle should be winning this game. Like, I could make it sound as scary as possible, but Max Brosmer is starting on the opposite side of Seattle. If the Seahawks can't come away with a win at home at that against this Vikings team, you got yourself a bigger problem than just Sam Darnold having a tough game. I like the Seahawks, 26-13. Good game for them. Come away with the W. On to the next week. Raiders and Chargers, I've got to say, this afternoon window, a little bit boring if you ask me. Not a whole lot of greatness in it. Raiders and Chargers, the Chargers O-line is definitely a story for this one here and just protecting Justin Herbert and letting him operate. The Chargers O-line boasts the second worst pressure rate in the NFL, seventh most sacks allowed as well. And while the Las Vegas Raiders pass rush isn't the most threatening by any means, it's definitely a unit you have to keep in mind. And of course, Max Crosby, always a game wrecker when given the opportunity to, and when you have the offensive tackle situation being what it is in LA, that could be a bit of a problem for you. So definitely someone worth keeping an eye on there. On the flip side, you want to talk about O-line struggles. I'm just curious if this Raiders O-line can do literally anything for this offense here. Geno Smith's getting sacked at an unbelievable clip right now, and at some point I'm worried that he's going to go down and someone's going to have to scrape him off the field with a shovel. But you add in the fact that they can't run the football either. They're getting next to no push in the run game. Ashton Genty's yardage, whatever the over-under was for Ashton Genty this season, you under people are like as clear as could possibly be, I would have to imagine, if you're a bettor. That being said, the Chargers do come in roughly middle of the pack against the run. So, I mean, if you're trying to maybe see if you can establish something on the ground, maybe this is the game for it. The pass rush is a roughly top 10 to 12 unit for LA, led by Tuli Polotu and Khalil Mack coming off the edges. They've been pretty good as a 1-2 punch coming off the edge. Obviously, Khalil Mack's season a little disrupted by injuries, so his numbers aren't quite as impressive, but he still looked good for the most part. Ultimately, though, in LA, on top of that, give me the Chargers. This one feels like a good game for Justin Herbert. Something's telling me a lot of air yards for him. Yeah, again, I am a little bit concerned about the O-line and just what we're going to get in the form of pass protection, but I think if they can just single out Max Crosby, take care of him, you don't have too much to worry about from the rest of this Raiders pass rush, and Justin Herbert, given the time to throw from the pocket, can dissect the defense with the best of them. So I like the Chargers 30-17. Good, comfortable victory for them over an AFC West division rival. And then to wrap up the afternoon window before we get into Sunday Night Football, the Bills going into Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Both of these teams, we finally got a good game here. Both of these teams need this win. You look at Buffalo, down a couple of games against New England. Pittsburgh just watched Baltimore get upset, as everyone did in prime time on Thursday Night Football against their division rival Cincinnati Bengals. Both of these teams need this win. Steelers to reclaim first place in the AFC North. And then on the flip side, Buffalo trying to close the gap against this New England Patriots team that is just coming out of nowhere with 10 wins. There is, however, some real concern to be had about this Bills offense, and especially along the offensive line. It sounds like both Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins are going to be out for this matchup here. Pittsburgh may have the worst pass defense in the NFL, statistically speaking, and the secondary has had a hell of a time trying to stop teams, but they do have a top 5 pass rush when it comes to getting after the quarterback and getting them down. They are 5th in the league, I believe, in terms of total sacks this season. So if they can get home, especially with both edges of both tackles along the offensive line not being there for you, could be a bit of a problem, and is definitely something I'm concerned about. Josh Allen has faced a ton of pressure over the last 3 games. He's gotten sacked 11 times, obviously 8 versus Houston on Thursday Night Football. He's seen a lot of pressure on top of that as well. Things have gotten a little bit scary for this offense over there in Buffalo these last few weeks. And if the team comes out pass heavy, I don't know. I mean, lean on Josh Allen, get the ball out of his hands quick. Maybe with how aggressive Pittsburgh's defense can be, you can make Josh Allen can make them pay for it, beat him with his legs, something like that. You also have like Dalton Kincaid, their tight end. He is also listed as questionable and could be out for this game. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding this Buffalo Bills offensive line and just offense as a whole right now. So we'll see what they do. I know you're going to want to throw against this Steelers team because you have Josh Allen. He can do it with the best of them with the way he can throw the football. I'm just a little bit concerned about this O-line and protecting Allen and giving him the time to do what he does best. On the flip side, you have Aaron Rodgers playing. He's playing hurt, obviously. It's his left wrist, not his right, so you don't have to worry about that. However, there is that concern that, like, you take one hard fall to the ground and you land the wrong way and you don't protect that wrist, you go from, a fracture in his wrist? Is it a break? I can't remember exactly what it is, but if it can go from one of those to getting even worse, it could end up being the remainder of the season for him at that point. So there is definitely some concern to be had there. I do think it is in Pittsburgh's best interest, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is the way that they go, that they lean on their rushing attack to challenge this Bills run D. It has not been pretty for Buffalo this season. They have struggled to stop the run all year long. And for Pittsburgh, they don't really run the football a lot. And it's interesting because at least your top two running backs in terms of Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell, they're averaging a combined 4.5 yards per attempt. That's not bad by any means as a 1-2 punch. So maybe in this one here, you deploy that rushing attack a little bit more. Take some of the stress off of Aaron Rodgers. I know he wants to throw the football. He wants to get it to DK Metcalf, to Pat Freiermuth, all those guys. I get it. Believe me, I do. But Buffalo has faced the fourth most rushing attempts in the NFL for a reason, and it's because teams are well aware at this point they cannot stop the run. And a lot of that has to do with some of the injuries that they've faced between defensive line and their linebacking room as a whole. And they're still banged up there, and they're still not completely healthy. If you are Pittsburgh going into this game here, you're not relying on Aaron Rodgers trying to get into some shootout with the Buffalo Bills. Take a page out of the Miami Dolphins playbook. Run the football. You have two running backs who are capable enough as a dual combo coming out of the backfield. Lean on them. Make the throws easy for Aaron Rodgers. Let me just see you tackle things on the ground. Don't get too crazy. Don't try to throw with Josh Allen. I do not think that that's the recipe for success against this Bills defense. That all being said, one of the hardest games to pick for Sunday, in my opinion, because again, both these teams desperately need this game to secure something within either one of their situations as far as the playoffs are concerned. I do think I'm going Buffalo, though. I have a lot of worry about the Steelers' defense, their ability to stop teams from throwing the football. This Aaron Rodgers wrist thing, it might end up being a non-factor, but like I said, you take one wrong fall, and I'm sure he's mentally trying to prepare himself to make sure if he's going down, he's not putting that arm in harm's way, but like instincts kick in. And at a moment's notice, you're going down, that arm comes out and something goes from a small break or a fracture to just, worst case scenario. I am a little bit worried about that. You add in the fact that Broderick Jones is also missing from the offensive line as well. And again, I can sit here and talk about challenge the Bills' run defense. The Steelers, at the end of the day, they have not been running the football a lot this season. They don't really like to run the football a lot. I don't know if they'll actually adjust their scheme to do so. So I'll be curious to see what happens. But I do like the Bills. I think in a higher scoring contest, though, I think both defenses flawed enough to let points happen. Bills 30, Steelers 24. Fun afternoon window matchup. And then to wrap up the Sunday slate of games, and a reminder, we'll pick Monday's game on Sunday in the morning. We got Denver going into Washington to take on the Commanders in this one here. First things first, no Jaden Daniels once again, so tough blow for Washington. At this point, though, I don't really see... Has it been 4 weeks since Jaden Daniels dislocated his elbow? Because if it has been, why did he never go on IR? It does not really make sense to me at this point, other than if they just think he's going to be back next week. Because I understand like IR is 4 games, and I believe they had their bye week recently, so it's not weeks, it's games for the IR, so just keep that in mind. Maybe that's why. If it's not been, it feels like Jaden Daniels has been out for a month at minimum. That all being said, Denver's pass rush on a historical run, leading the NFL with 49 sacks as things currently stand. They got 6 players with 3 sacks or more on that pass rush right now. It's just unbelievable what they're doing defensively. Washington, of course, without Jaden Daniels, is now starting Marcus Mariota. And the O-line in Washington's been fine at best. I don't really know if they have what it takes, though, to stop that pass rush from getting to Marcus Mariota. And this will be by far the scariest test of Mariota's season starting for this Commanders team. We have seen Washington have some success running the football recently with Chris Rodriguez, and so you have him and, of course, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. You lean on those two guys, but it's not like the Denver Broncos let teams run the football very effectively either. Like, this defense is great no matter where you look. You add in the fact that Patrick Surtain is also coming back into the fold as well, so I'll be honest with you, and you couple the fact that Washington's defense has been borderline a nightmare for a while now. I know that they had a good game overseas against the Dolphins a few weeks ago. They still lost the game, but they at least had a good game for the most part. I don't really know how Washington comes away with a win here unless Denver comes in and, like, this is the ultimate trap game and they sleepwalk into this because they're looking ahead. Like, this is a trap game, I guess, in theory, against Washington, being that the state of the state that the Washington Commanders are in, but Denver should be coming away with a very comfortable win here, in my opinion, and I'm taking them 28-17. I don't really see why they wouldn't come away with the W. They look like the best team, nearly the best team in the NFL, at least defensively. And the offense, it needs work, but if they're representing the AFC in the Super Bowl this year, I wouldn't be too surprised because defense will take you a long way. And if they can figure it out with Sean Payton's scheme, that team's going to be a problem when we get into the playoffs, especially with the way some of these offenses in the AFC have been playing right now, not living up to their standards. So I'll take the Denver Broncos again, 28-17, comfortable win to wrap up the Sunday slate of games. But comment down below, let me hear from you. Thoughts, opinions on the matchup, who you like, who you dislike, and why. But as always, if you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it. I'll see you all on Sunday to preview Monday Night Football. Have a good one.